So good evening everyone. We are the group one, and for today we're going to do the post lab um, of the laboratory activity 9, which is all about the isolation of carbohydrates, which is in liver, glycogen, and plant starch. So with my group mates Gaa, Saluber, Villas, Ginang, and Mama. So for the objectives of this laboratory activity, we have three. First, to prepare potato starch. Second is to isolate glycogen from chicken, liver, and last is yung i-test ang presence of starch and glycogen.
So for the data and results, first off is the starch from potato. After straining the peeled potatoes, let the starch settle at the bottom of the beaker, decanting the supernatant liquid repeatedly and pat drying it. The students have obtained a pure white starch powder. And for the glycogen from chicken liver, after 10 minutes of pounding the liver together with 10% glacial acetic acid in a mortar and pestle and adding 10 ml of distilled water after achieving a homogeneous phase, it resulted to a dirty brown solution with vinegar-like odor. As per expected, since glacial acetic acid is a byproduct of fermentation and gives vinegar its characteristic odor.
So for the test for starch and Benedict's test, we all know that Benedict's solution is used to detect reducing sugars, typically monosaccharides or disaccharides. It will show a positive result for reducing sugars such as glucose, lactose, fructose, and etc. And it will show a negative result for non-reducing sugars such as fructose, starch, and etc. So in this experiment, our starch gives a negative result for reducing sugar. After adding the Benedict's test, kasi sabi ko nga kanina na ang Benedict's solution will show a negative results for non-reducing sugars like the starch. So, ano lang siya, blue color pa rin yung reaction niya. Makikita natin yung sa picture mamaya. So, for the Molish test, it gives a positive result for carbohydrates and has color green at the bottom with purple ring junction and foamy light brown at the top. Because Molish test is a chemical test that detects the presence of carbohydrates. That is why positive siya dito. Makikita po natin yan mamaya sa picture po. And next reporter po.
So for the iodine test, iodine test is a chemical test used to determine the presence of a starch in a sample. So yung result ng iodine test namin sa starch is positive for the presence of starch in the sample solution. So nag-yield siya ng deep blue complex and makita natin yun siya sa next slide. Next reporter, please.
So next is for the isolation of glycogen. So first for the Benedict's test. So as Lalaine said that Benedict's test is used for detecting reducing sugar. Since it is a glycogen, it is not a reducing sugar. For example, the chicken liver, it is negative for reducing sugar since glycogen is a polysaccharide, while in this distilled water, it is also negative for reducing sugar since water is not a reducing sugar. So next is for the Molish test. For the liver or the chicken liver, it is a positive for carbohydrates, yielded a purple ring junction. Makita yan siya sa next slide. Makita niyo yung parang bottom sa test tube. So for distilled water, still it is a negative for carbohydrates.
And for the iodine test, so sa liver natin, we have the negative for the presence of starch. And for the distilled water, obviously, since water siya, wala siya presence of starch. So negative ang iyang result. So next slide, the next reporter, please. Okay. Yan pala yung picture guys. Yan yung iodine test, Molish test, at saka Benedict test. So yung alternating siya, di lang makita yung picture dyan, like naka-indicate yun sa taas, like anong test, at saka yung usually yung parang brown, yan yung liver. Tapos yung sa gilid niya, yan yung distilled water. So yun. Next slide.
So, in conclusion of this activity, carbohydrates are necessary component in order for our body to work. So, the body receives glucose from carbohydrates, which is then transformed into energy for maintaining biological process and engaging in physical activity. Your body uses carbohydrates as its primary energy source to power your kidneys, brain, heart, and muscles. So, and central nervous system rather. As an illustration, fiber is a type of carbohydrates that promotes healthy digestion, makes you feel full, and lower lower blood cholesterol levels. So through this activity, the students were able to gain a deeper understanding the isolation of carbohydrates. The students were able to conduct the different tests properly, and they were able to prepare potato starch, isolate glycogen from chicken liver, and test for the presence of starch and glycogen. And also, the student conducted a different test for starch and recorded a negative result in Benedict test since starch is polysaccharide, therefore it's non-reducing, and both positive result in the iodine and Molish test. Lastly, the students have also conducted tests for the isolation of glycogen and recorded a positive result for the Molish test and both negative results in the iodine and Benedict test. All in all, the students learn a lot that will soon be applied in a primary practice. And that's all po. Thank you.